Recording is in progress. With us today, we have Greg Tenore, who is retired U.S. Army, and Mr. Gil Gonzales, a retired Marine. We're not going to get into the bickering back and forth of the Marines versus the Army. We know which one's best. Obviously, the Army. But I appreciate both of you being here in attendance and helping me out. Full disclosure, I served with both of these fine gentlemen while I had a military career of 10 years myself. And so they're both personal friends of mine. So if there's any discussion of that, that's why. Some inside jokes and whatnot. But I appreciate each and every one of you. My name is Nick Humphrey. I am a GIS analyst for Montgomery County. I've been doing GIS, believe it or not, for about 20 years now, which is hard to believe. I am a self-proclaimed map nerd, and have been that way since I was a young child with maps all over my room. So I will now open it up to introductions. Greg, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the students here?
Sure. Like Nick said, my name's Greg Tenore. I'm actually located in Texas as well. I'm about an hour and a half north of Austin in a place called Harker Heights, which is right outside the Fort Hood military installation. Like Nick, I've been doing this about 20 years. I retired from the Army after 22 years back in October of 2015. I was a government contractor for a while, working GIS and teaching GIS to soldiers around the world. And this past March, I took a position as a program manager / technical consultant with Esri. So yeah, that's me.
Great. Gil, go ahead and introduce yourself, if you would, please.
Hi there. Thanks for having me. Gil Gonzales, as Nick had mentioned before, retired Marine. I was a geospatial intelligence professional in the Marine Corps for 22 years, retired, had the opportunity to write some strategy and policy for the Marine Corps geospatial community before I left. That parlayed into a career continuing within the DoD and the IC community with Esri and a couple of other open source community companies. I'm currently still serving in the Department of Defense, helping some government customers mash up AI and machine learning and GIS. So again, thanks for having me.
Great. I appreciate each one of you for taking your time out of your busy schedule. For the students and the teachers, we had an issue a few panels ago. If you have any questions, I'll be asking some leading questions to these fine gentlemen. But if you have any questions that I may not cover, please type them in the chat. We'll try and get to them at the end of this panel. So both to Greg and Gil, were you deployed at some point in your military career? And if so, if you can say, where were you deployed at?
Sure, I'll go ahead and go. Yeah, so I did 3 deployments, all of them to Iraq. The first one with Nick was in 2004, from January 2004 to December 2004. And we started in Kuwait, and we got in our vehicles and we drove north, and eventually we were in Baghdad for 11 and a half wonderful months. And then my further on deployments were in 2009 to 2010. I was back right outside of Baghdad. And then my last one was 2011 to 2012. I was south of Baghdad at a base called Qas Kalsu. And we stayed there about 6 months. And then the entire Army filtered out of Iraq and went down south. And I sat in Kuwait for another 7 months at the end of the war as a sort of a holdback force.
Great. Yeah, so I remember that 2004 deployment. That was an
Wonderful.
Interesting time, that's for sure. Gil, go ahead. What were you deployed, and if so, where were you?
Yeah, so obviously I had the pleasure of supporting combat operations and military intelligence operations, both in Operation Iraqi Freedom and Enduring Freedom, Iraq and Afghanistan, respectively. Spent probably the most time in one deployment during my time in Iraq in the Anbar province. But prior to that, I had the pleasure of serving aboard Navy vessels all throughout the Mediterranean. Did some time in northern Eastern Africa, and then supporting some operations in Kosovo and Macedonia, places like that. Places that people forget that need GIS and military intelligence support. But happy to have had all that and be able to perform some aspects of GIS in support of those operations there. So yeah.
Great. So Greg, you said you've been doing GIS or working in GIS for about 20 years now. What has changed the most in GIS in those 20 years that you've noticed? Has there been a change?
No, there has been a great change in the technology. When I first came in, it was sort of at the dawn of the computer age. We still learned to do and make maps by hand, literally by hand, and learn how to make grids and projections and draw features and all these things. But the computers were there. It was in the beginning. So in these past 20 years, I've seen it go from you had to know how to write code to pretty much easy buttons that a very novice user can use GIS and the power that it gives you to answer your questions and help you in your everyday life, whether it's for you students in school doing assignments or businesses. Once you get out of school and you're working, you'll quickly find out that if you peel back a few layers, that GIS is everywhere. And if you look at it, you're only a few steps away from a GIS product, whether you know it or not. So that's where I've seen it go, and it just keeps getting easier and easier, but more and more technology driven.
Yeah, Gil, you've had a very diverse working with the intelligence community, both at the Pentagon and in the military and outside of the military. Has GIS grown in the Marine Corps also, like it has in the other services, or where did you come in? Did you come in also sort of at the dawn of the computer age?
Yeah, so Greg has brought up a very good point. There was this great digital transformation that was starting to happen late 80s, early 90s. That was making good on a lot of the computer science accomplishments from the 60s up until that point. And so making maps layer by layer was just was the thing that you had to do until really GIS and GISs came into maturity, not to be able to handle a lot of that node work, digitally. What actually what's actually good about it, and that was not as prevalent back then, is the availability. So the Marine Corps, just like the Army, just like the other services, were learning about GIS around the same time that really industry and academia was learning about GIS. We were all kind of growing up together. And so, this thing happened to fall into my lap, being a young 18-year-old youngster. And so what I like about, some of the folks probably sit in the audience today is that they don't have to wait for anything like GIS to fall into their hand or hope that the organization that they join, whether it's military or not, has a GIS program. But yeah, there was no different in my service than in any other services. As a matter of fact, it was a worldwide growth of GIS.
So both of you have been working in GIS for 20 years. What sort of gets you up in the morning, sort of gets you excited about working in this field? If it does, if it doesn't, I understand. But is there something about working in GIS daily that gets you sort of excited to go to work?
Sure, I'll go ahead. Yeah, Gil, if you don't mind. So it's like any job, not every day I want to be working, but there's most days I find that my intellectual interest is piqued by learning new things that GIS can do and the questions that it can answer. So while I don't like writing reports and doing the managerial stuff I have to do, when I get to actually use the software that I'm telling people is the greatest in the world, that's where I get my pleasure from. And it like this weekend, I was just thinking about some stuff I had to do this week. So I just sat down Sunday and started doing it, because I work better when the ideas are fresh in my head. So I just came up here to my office and started working on some maps and dashboards and things I've been working on while the iron is hot. So it's just the new things that I figure out and see every day is what gets me going.
Yeah. What about you, Gil? What sort of gets your juices flowing for GIS?
Yeah, I'm going to tag another previous point that Greg had, which was like GIS is in places whether you realize it or not, that sort of thing. So a very close cousin in the GIS space is spatial, right? So geospatial and spatial awareness, spatial wellness. The minute you learn about the power of spatial awareness, basically, discovering unknowns between two knowns, that sort of thing. It changes your whole life. You're wearing a new pair of glasses for the rest of your life on how you see problems, how you search for solutions. And really, GIS is one of those things. It kind of unplugs you from the matrix, if you will, to be a little dramatic, but you see the world differently. And you're not only are you finding new ways to answer questions, you're actually finding new questions to ask. And that's really what gets me out of bed every day. I mean, it's really just a part of my everyday cycles of life. So yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're talking to high school students here, and I know that the three of us were in the military together. And I know I didn't have a degree when I joined the military, but I'm working on that. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the two of you were in the same boat, but got your degrees. If you have, was that a benefit to get your degree? What type of advice would you give to somebody that wants to get into GIS and do this field? Would you, being in the military just as good as somebody who gets a degree? Is it better, worse, the same? What sort of advice would you give to somebody that wants to get into that is interested in maps and learning about GIS and what it can do? Where would you direct them as high school students?
So I would say, finish high school. I was a rock. I dropped out, got my GED, and thought I knew everything, and found out quickly I didn't. But I ended up getting my master's degree while I was in the Army, and since I got out, I've got a post graduate degree. But GIS is great in that you don't necessarily need a degree to know it. You can just start learning it. So yes, has the degree helped me? Has it opened my eyes to different aspects of it? Of course. Has it helped me professionally? Yes. But to get into it now it's your generation. It's at your fingertips. There's a zillion YouTube videos. Just go to YouTube and look for Esri products and basic GIS. Esri offers it free to schools. I think some of your schools have the software that my company offers. If not, there's free options out there. So I would say just get after it if you're interested in it, because just like Gil said, it's everywhere. It's whether you want to own your own business, a bakery, a wine vineyard, whatever it can be. Maps and the power that information can give you will benefit you no matter where you go. So I'd say just get after it and show your interest. And yeah, sure, go to school, finish your degree. But hey, the military is a great choice. Like Gil, when I first joined the military, I was a completely different job. I shot a howitzer, which is a cannon, and I blew stuff up. I realized after 6 years, I needed to do something different for my post-military life, and I fell into GIS and literally fell into it because I was going to be an air traffic controller, but then I heard about this GIS thing, and I found some people, and they told me they went to school for 6 months, and they went to the field for like twice a year, and they lived in trailers. So I was sold. I didn't know anything about maps and went to the schoolhouse, and it changed my life. So just get after it.
Gil, same question. What type of advice would you give somebody?
Yeah, so I mean, if you kind of you can separate the two, right? So military service, kind of any sort of like service, whether it's civil service or whatever it is, whether it's within the local police force or military, whatever it is. Just that's a great mission to be a part of. It's all of the military service organizations are wonderful, and it's a good pathway. It's a good springboard, into kind of where you want to be, in 5 or 10 years, into something that could, provide, opportunities for the rest of your life, which I think all three of us can attest to that. And then you look at like GIS, it's a vocation, right? But it's a vocation that is both revolutionizing and evolutionizing the way we do things. So then when you match those two up, and there happens to be a GIS vocation within your military service organization, I mean, that's the best of both worlds. So I'm not pitting those two together. I think they're great partners, and really that's just kind of two sides of a very similar decision coin for someone that wants to figure out what they want to do for from 18, 19 and into your mid 20s, until you really figure out how you're gonna continue to be a productive citizen in whatever community you end up in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to thank both of you for helping me with this, and Eric being the moderator in the background. I want to open it up to any questions that may be coming from the high school students or from the teachers. Is there anything that Greg, Gil, and I have not covered that you'd like answers to? If not, I have one final question for both gentlemen, but I'd like to open up for any questions in the chat, if you would, please. And also, if you'd annotate sort of how many students are in your classrooms there. We'll just give it a minute here.
Hey, Nick, while we're waiting, one thing I wanted to tell the students is, unfortunately, we all went through COVID together. And I don't know if you remember, but early on last year, you saw the John Hopkins dashboard or tracker that you would see all over in every media, every channel. Well, that was a GIS product. That was strictly made out of GIS software to tell the unfortunate story of what was happening with COVID. And many, I know our state has one. I'm pretty sure your county has one. So that goes back to my point of GIS being everywhere, and you see it whether you think so or not, that it's there. It's not just your phone when you're using navigation. It's everything. If you can think about it, it can be mapped to the world, and from that you can extrapolate information that's associated with it to answer your easy questions and answer very hard questions. Absolutely.
Thank you for bringing that up. I'm actually the one that maintains our county's dashboard. So if you go to Montgomery County, that dashboard that shows the COVID cases, I'm the one that maintains it. Actually, we'll be updating it here in a couple hours. We updated on Tuesday. So thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate that. I'm not seeing any questions coming through. Eric, you don't see anything? Nothing? I'm not missing anything, correct?
I do not. No.
Okay. All right. So one final question for both Greg and Gil, if you guys don't mind. What did you do in the past day or so that was GIS related? Did you do anything? Greg, you said you worked some stuff on Saturday, Sunday.
Yep.
Are you doing that daily?
It's not a daily product for me. It's sort of ramping up. But yesterday I spent all day in a class. I was taking a class on Geo Event Server. So that goes to that the technology is always changing. And yeah, I've been doing this for 20 years, but no one ever knows everything in this field. And if they tell you they do, they're lying to you. It's a field that you have to stay up on the technology because it's always changing. Even though I work for Esri, I can probably use 15% of what they make, well. There's so much out there. So I was in a class all day yesterday, and then afterwards I worked on some work stuff to get some dashboards and maps finished up that we're presenting to the Army G2 later this week or next week. So yep, just GIS stuff.
Thank you. Gil, what did you do? Have you worked on GIS stuff in the past few days?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm a hobbyist, right? So I unfortunately I get paid to do GIS things, so that's great. But I also do it in my spare time. Most recently, the neighborhood I was living in, I was having really bad cell phone usage. Calls were dropping out, and I was just like, man, what's going on here? So I just took it upon myself. Went and got some publicly available information about cell towers in my local area. Threw it in, I'll throw the plug out there for Esri, ArcGIS Online. I just created a quick, cell gap map to make sure that I'm not buying junky mobile phones. It wasn't me. It was the mobile architecture that's just not friendly with what I'm doing. And then again, I'm trying to move GIS into the AI machine learning world. So I just went and found a free online course on how to build an object detection model. Ran it on a few photos in my personal photo album, and it was spitting out guesses at the geographic location of where those photos were taken. Yeah, really easy stuff that kind of starter stuff that's going to help me both professionally and then, appease my personal curiosity about the world around me.
Well, great. I want to thank both of you for your. Yeah,
if I can, Nick, one thing I'll say about our field is it's very small, so a lot of people. And now I know Gil, which works out great because I'm also working a project that is AI, machine learning, and deep learning centric. So now I know I have another contact. So immediately after this call, I'm going to make sure I email Gil so I can keep him in my circle of people I know. that's a great thing. Like I said, it's a great thing about this field. In the Army, what, Nick, when we were in, there were maybe 1,200 of us in the entire Army. So
If
even
that,
to
yeah.
this, yeah, even to this day, when I meet young GIS people, being young, that they're new to the field or new to the service, it's only 1 or 2 degrees separation between someone that they know, that I know I served with, or our paths cross. So that's another great thing about the field, is it's very welcoming. And I may not have talked to Nick in a decade, but I know I can reach out to him if I have a problem or I need something, and it's always there. So it's not just building maps, it's building a community and a network of friendships and reliable, associates.
Pretty cool
That's
club to
what
be a
was
part
great
of.
about being knowing the two of you. I knew I could call or email you guys to say, hey, I got this thing with the students, because it is a small community, and we work well together.
Definitely.
So thank you both for your time and your patience with me getting prepared for this. Students, I hope that this helped you learn a little bit about what GIS in the military is, and how it trains you to become GIS analysts and further your career in GIS technology. And I hope that you all have a wonderful day. Please, at the end, if you would, go to the website and fill out the hold on one second, I'm doing like 3 things here. One moment. On our website, there is a survey for what we could do better, that sort of stuff, how you enjoyed it. And then please also let us know how many students are in your classroom there. Greg and Gil, hopefully next year we can get together and have a few more of have another reunion of sorts.
Yeah, definitely. Look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day. Eric, thank you very much for your time.
All right. Take care.
Take care all.